Welcome, dear listener, to Desert Island Gamer, a quick-fire interview podcast digging into those video games that shaped us into the wholesome, kind-hearted people we are today. The entirely original premise: one desert island, one guest, 3 games they adore, one game they abhor, and a carefully selected gaming character with which to spend an eternity of moonlit walks along the beach. It could be weird, it could be unhinged, and it could have crappy sound quality, but at least it will be short. To the island. Welcome to Desert Island Gamer, the podcast that thinks it's way cooler than it actually is. With me upon the island is voice actor extraordinaire, Gavin Hammon. Welcome, sir.
Hello, thank you for having me. How are you?
Absolute pleasure. I am very well. Yourself?
I can't complain.
You're in an incredible room. I know people can't see this on the podcast.
Thank you.
I have to mention because it blew me away. It is an absolute myriad of collectibles, a drum kit. It's stunning.
It's a lot of stuff. I'm old, so I've been hanging on to things for a long time.
Before we go into traditional icebreaker questions, your resume is absolutely ridiculous. In a few months, I'll have been married 20 years, and I reckon I've probably heard your voice in various guises more than I've heard my own wife's voice. So,
sorry.
It's no bad thing, but... But you've been Ninja Turtle, you're in Oxenfree, which I absolutely adore, The Wolf Among Us, absolute gem of a game, and Telltale's Walking Dead. You play Kenny, and for me, the greatest game ever made, and I've played some games in my time.
Right on, thank you.
And I just wanted to say, from the bottom of my heart, I'm really, really jealous. The Walking Dead, I realised how emotional a game can be.
Yeah, and I think that it was the first time for a lot of us to be in a game that had such pronounced narrative, especially without mocap. And, when we started working on it, it was probably 2010. So, there was Uncharted and stuff like that and Mass Effect. And there were games that definitely had narrative structure like that, but that didn't necessarily cover such a range of horror we did.
Yeah, it just felt so different, just so heart-wrenching.
Jake and Sean and all the writers that worked on it and the directors and Jory Prume and Julian Kwasniewski did such a great job getting emotional performances and writing emotional material and kind of putting it all together that it was really a huge honor to be a part of it and to just be included, because we really didn't know what it was going to be. We just kind of, went in there and it was sure. Telltale was doing Sam & Max at the time, and I think all of us had worked on CSI or Law & Order or something like that for them. But once they really started moving into that particular license, it really took off. And
when you hold a script like that, can you immediately tell this is something special?
From the beginning, it was clear that it was really different. Dave Fennoy talks a lot about, a video game script has grenade or moving that way or all that sort of stuff. And still do, so you still see a lot of those movement lines or lines that are associated with actions in the game. Whereas this was basically the first packet was almost all of the scenes within the first episode, so it was the introduction of Kenny, at least in my packet, his introduction, maybe some of the Salt Lick stuff, some of the high intensity stuff with Larry. So things that kind of were sprinkled throughout, the first couple, and things that ended up getting tweaked and put in later in the season. So it was a pretty good range. Back then, their audition packets would be, 8 or 9 pages, not necessarily of all material, but there would be at least 2 pages worth of specs and breakdown of the character, and then there would be the sides, which are the lines, and we go through the whole thing, and you could just tell it was different. And it's still, it still looks very different. Not a lot of video games, still auditions look like that anymore.
That's carried through with Telltale in general. If you were playing a Telltale game, you knew you were going to get something special in terms of the narrative was going to be really impressive, and the performances that were going to be there were just going to be absolutely stellar.
The thing to me that's the most exciting about the Wolf announcement that they kind of teased, they announced, and it's Ad Hoc Studios who are working on it, who are Dennis Lennart, who directed the first season of The Walking Dead, Pierre Choret, Nick Herman, who basically wrote the first season. So it's the people that created it are definitely involved. I hope it comes to fruition and everything.
Oh, absolutely. Because
it would be amazing. And those guys are phenomenal.
We definitely need to get lost in a few the video game narratives at the moment, the way things are going outside the front Dom.
I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima right now, and that's like a narrative goldmine, especially if you like samurais at all.
One thing that I'm really curious about, if you get a terrible film, but with a great performance in there, most people will sit and watch the film to the end and appreciate a terrible film, but that performance, that was great. With a game, a great performance or great narrative can get lost or missed because it's built on poor gameplay. In your experience, have you ever known that to be the case?
I think so, because it's so dependent upon the game. It's like, I would say I'm much more likely to finish a game with bad VO in it because I enjoy the game mechanics or enjoy the game. I'm a lot less likely to finish a bad game with great VO because it's like, I'm not going to sit here for another 60 hours and get through this thing. It's not good. So definitely, I think that's the case. You're much more likely to quit a game early, despite a performance. I've been playing games since the 70s, so for me, it's like voice in video games is still kind of new, and it's okay.
Yeah. The other thing, voice acting massively intrigues me. As a mid-40s adult with a taste for games, audiobooks, cartoons, I may sound like I need an intervention, but I've probably been entertained more by voice actors and off-screen acting than I have by on-screen. Is there a community within the voice acting world, like a family, or is it all backstabbing, bitching, like a family as well? But
voice acting, they're beautiful. It's so different than, because I also come from a music background. I was in a band in the 1990s and toured all over the world and whatnot. And that's more of like, there's definitely your cliques and there's sort of your weird relationships, but voice acting and VO in general, there's always exceptions. But by and large, everybody's super cool and everybody gets along really well. I'm very close to most of the cast of The Walking Dead. Especially, Omid, Katya, Clem. They're good friends, and it's like, and people that, record as well. It's like we generally are kind of kindred spirits. Yeah. So it's nice. And even like in Los Angeles in like an animation session, which will be terrifying because it'll be like, you'll walk in and everybody and nobody knows who you are because you're not anybody, but but still everybody's really nice and cool and treats you well, and everybody kind of treats each other like peers, like equals. We're all doing something weird and we're all lucky to be here and we're all thrilled to have the opportunity.
That's really disappointing. I was hoping it'd be all like, why did he get that role? I could have done that role.
But that has a lot more to do with the people that hire us than us.
Right.
We're all like, we're hardly ever even, like, they say it's super competitive, but it's like, I never know what you might do with an audition. I don't know what anybody's doing with an audition. I'm only hearing myself, and if I don't get it, then I didn't get it. And if somebody else did it, I don't know what they did. I don't know if they knew somebody or if they, bought somebody a burrito or something.
Well,
I don't know.
You can tell yourself that regardless. They definitely paid someone. That's what I was hoping, that there was kind of a community of support and everyone knew each other from the various games, and obviously paths will cross and so on. Let's do something very important. Icebreaker questions. I'm sure as an actor, you'll appreciate the drama I just instilled into this segment via that subtle change in my voice. Thank you. I am available for work should anyone be casting a slightly monotone Northern English character. Question 1. What was the worst style choice you ever made?
Style choice. I would say like bleaching the top of your hair, but not the sides. Well, that's not I guess it is a style choice.
That's a serious...
I used to grease my hair back and then I'd bleach the top, and the top was kind of like poofy and ratted out. But this was in the 80s.
It sounds like you should be a member of the Lost Boys.
Yeah.
Is that inspiration?
That was a huge influence. I used to watch that movie every day. I would come home from school and I would watch the Lost Boys. What I didn't realize at the time is a lot of those dudes were really old and had receding hairlines. And so I was kind of like, I want to look like that. I want it to be like way back up here, so like you can see back up here, that's what I want.
Question 2. Best piece of advice you've ever been given?
You never know how hard something is until you try it. And I found that to be supremely true throughout my life. If I try something, generally, it's much, much easier than I thought it was going to be. You never know until you try. Don't try, and if you don't put effort into, whatever it is you want to do, you'll never know.
You'll never have a tremendous collection of incredible memorabilia and a drum kit.
None of this was from trying. This was all just from being in a place at a time, or, having access to the internet.
Last of the icebreaker questions. One film you would say that everybody should sit and watch at some point during their life?
Just one? Raising Arizona. First 10 minutes of that movie make me laugh like most movies all the way through. I adore that film.
It's
got so
film.
many actors that I really, really love. That's the one.
It's a good one. It's a very good one.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Your gaming history?
Yeah. So we had Pong. We had Pong, which was prior to the Atari 2600. My dad was always like a total gamer head, even though the things didn't exist. He used to play that little Mattel handheld football that was just like dashes that would go down across the screen. He used to play that thing until 9-volt batteries died. So there were always gaming consoles in my house from the time I was a kid. He had a 2600, and then we had Intellivision, ColecoVision, Vectrex. He was always wanting to have gaming systems. So, and I still have most of them. So yeah, I've always been a console guy. I played PC games for a little bit, and that was mostly World of Warcraft, which I played for 7 years. And almost lost my wife.
I've always been scared to play it because I've heard similar stories.
It was so bad like in the early 2000s too, because it was like you needed 60 people to mount a raid. So you had 60 people. You had like, I don't even remember what it was. Maybe it wasn't 60, maybe it was 40. No, it was a 40-man raid. See, I'm totally creating it because I'm like 8 groups of 5, 60. No. So yeah, like 40 people you would have to actually have on at the same time with compatible internet. I mean, it's like a technological marvel that it works.
Yeah. Can you remember the sort of longest session you put in on World of Warcraft?
Oh yeah, I'm sure there were days when I played probably all day long. Like probably 12 or so hours straight.
Amazing.
Depends on where I was and what I had to do and whether or not I had kids.
But I have heard it is one of them games that does get cited in divorce papers.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
Game number 1, Gavin.
Number 1, and it's going to cover a lot of bases for me, is going to be Diablo 3 because I love a hack and slash. I loved World of Warcraft, which is not dissimilar, same developer, obviously. I love Blizzard. They're probably my very favorite developer ever. And I could replay that over and over and over and over and over again. So that would be my first game to take to a desert island.
It's a good game.
I mean, I played all of Diablo. I played the first one. I played all of the second one, all of the expansions for them. I'm a Diablo guy.
Game 2.
Probably, just in order to satisfy my need for first-person shooters, I'm going to choose Destiny. And I'd probably choose the first one rather than Destiny 2. I do love Destiny 2, and I still play it all the time. But I'm going to go with the first one just for nostalgia's sake. And it's a great... Bungie, I think, makes the best first-person shooters around. So I love that. Sci-fi and monsters. I don't want to kill people. The raid mechanics were super cool. Raids felt like raids. There were only 6 people. Just the problem I think they ran into with Destiny 2 was the Activision factor. But I mean, they corrected a lot of things that, they had changed that made it less fun. And I think it's tremendously fun to play. Maybe not right now because they have a new expansion coming out in November. So it's a little bit dead right now because they had to push the current expansion back to November, but still very playable. Check it out. Good shooter.
Game 3.
Probably Breath of the Wild, because it'll satisfy a long RPG. I would choose Wind Waker or something, but I've played through that so many times that I still feel like Breath of the Wild would have things to offer where I would find whatever the little guys you'd find under the rocks and stuff. I know I haven't found all of those. I forget. The shrines, I could replay shrines over and over and over.
I feel like I need to begin to play more Zelda games.
I mean, Breath of the Wild is just a masterpiece of, third-person RPG.
Yeah. I've only ever played the Super Nintendo one.
Oh, yeah.
Which
They're
is
fun too.
Yeah, and I told someone and they made an audible gasp that I'd only played one Zelda game. But I have played a little bit of Breath of the Wild, and even just visually.
What the hell do you play, man?
I don't know if I play anything anymore. There was a game came out today on Game Pass called Night in the Woods, I think.
Game Pass is Xbox, or what is Game Pass?
Game Pass is Xbox.
My kids play on the Xbox.
Are you trying to say I use a kid's console when you're on?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that I made a choice to play with 3 guys that I play with, and they play on me.
I understand. 3 games, all good choices, but you do have to pick one. It doesn't have to be terrible, but one game to go on the fire.
I'm gonna try to think of like the biggest time suck of a game that, you know, would burn for the longest, because I would equate like the amount of hours that you would have to put into the game, how long it would
get
burn.
a collector's edition. That'll burn for days.
I don't want to like offend anybody just because this does not necessarily mean that I don't enjoy the game.
Yes.
But I'm going to go with one of the old like forced third person perspective Fallout, like the first Fallout back on, you know, it was on PC or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
before Fallout
90s,
was the Fallout we know.
Yeah, before it was the Bethesda thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that because it was turn-based, so it was really a very slow, plugging along kind of game. It was fun.
Yeah.
Also came in a bigger box because it was like a PC game. So
it'll burn for a little bit longer, of course. Yeah.
That'd be the one. And it's also pretty good. So it's like I could play it for a while before I needed to burn it. I wouldn't have to burn it right away.
You can't bend the rules. You can't. And it's funny, I suppose, how that's where we know Fallout today. This massive, ridiculous open world that's kind of jaw-dropping. So, yeah, it's a good choice. Burning the roots it came from.
I worked on some games that could use some burning. I remember one that I worked on, and I could probably say what it was. But when I went to record it, they told me that it was like, this was the worst game we had ever seen, so we're localizing it.
Wow.
And it was called Escape from Bug Island.
Is this still available?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure it's on YouTube. But this was, you know, early 2000s, 2006 or 7 or something. Not good. And I was in it. There's some bad stuff.
A gaming character, companion.
I would take Ghost from Destiny because he could resurrect me. And for a while, he had the voice of Peter Dinklage. Now he has the voice of Nolan North, and that's fine. But I would take the Peter Dinklage ghost with me just so I could listen to him talk about the moon. And he could resurrect me and then, like, you know, help me get to other planets and whatnot. Open doors for me. It'd be very good.
I feel like you're bending the rules again. Peter Dinklage is a good call. Probably the best choice we've had so far, to be honest.
Yeah.
What a tremendous choice. Were there any games you would say you would have almost taken?
Ooh, like almost taken to the islands? Yeah, there's like a million of them.
Yeah.
Like I love like Twisted Metal. I love like good driving games. I loved like Ridge Racer, especially I think it was Ridge Racer on like the PSP. Daytona on the Sega. That was really, really fun. That'd be a good one. Panzer Dragon. That would totally be up there just because it was like the first 3D running sort of game that I remember really being wowed by. There's all kinds of games I would bring.
There's so many. There's so many moments where I'm sure both of us thought, this is the peak. This is the pinnacle of gaming. It can't get any better than this. And then a year later, they just like, wow, what's happening?
I don't even remember what that game was called.
Yeah. Oh, forget that game. We've moved on. That brings your time on the island to an end.
Oh, you just mean you're leaving me on the island now.
Exactly. But you've got the voice of Peter Dinklage. You've got a retro Fallout game burning. But no, it's been honestly a total, genuine pleasure to talk to you. From the desert island, from myself, goodbye. And thank you, Gavin. Till next time.
Thanks for having me.